Okay, something is happening now. Okay. So let's talk about these. All the definitions are given except for the first one. So trade allowance basically says that you offer a temporary, let me restate it. You offer a temporary reduction in the price of the product, and the reduction is based on the time of purchase. That is, if, for example, you sell Christmas tree ornaments, things that you hang from Christmas trees, if you order basically your supplies in the month of June or July, you get a higher discount than when you order your product in the month of, let's say, November. So the temporary reduction in the price of the product is based on the time of purchase, on the volume of purchase. That is, the more you order, the bigger the discount you get from the manufacturer, or looking at it in a different way, on the dollar amount of purchase. Okay, so if you order over $100,000 worth of merchandise, you get a 20% discount, but below $100,000 worth of merchandise, you might get a 10% discount. Okay, so it's a temporary reduction in the price of the product, and it's based on, the reduction is based on the time of purchase, the volume of purchase, and the dollar amount of purchase. Okay, so that is trade allowance in simple terms. We will talk about trade allowance when we visit pricing, when we discuss pricing, and we will work on a problem or two which will be on your final exam. Okay, any questions about trade allowance? All right, good. Let's move forward and let's talk about display allowance. And we actually have talked about this a little bit when I showed you that picture where we had end of the aisle display. Okay, so the idea is that you offer an extra discount or an incentive to the retailer, for example, for prominently displaying the product in the store. So here in the US, when you're walking into a grocery store, and with Christmas coming up, this happens, or into a department store or these big retailers, just as you walk in, there might be huge display of a certain product, which could be soup of cans, or it could be beer, for example. It could be other kinds of drinks or whiskey, or it could be any product, you name it. Okay, there's a huge display just as you walk in, or these huge displays in basically well-trafficked aisles within the store. Okay, trust me, what is at play over here is this concept of display allowance. The manufacturer, for example, or the distributor is offering a higher discount or a higher, bigger incentive to the retailers, basically to be able to get those prominent display spaces within the stores. Okay, that's called display allowance. Third is trade contests, and I believe to some degree I mentioned about this, when we were talking about sales promotion. It says these are awards from manufacturers for achieving a certain level of performance. Okay, it could be aimed at auto dealerships. The entire dealership could get some kind of an award. So what happens is that if they can sell more than, I'm just kind of throwing this number at you, 60 cars per month or 100 cars per month, then basically they get an extra sort of money from the manufacturer, or basically, let's say, Honda of North America or Toyota of North America. Okay, it can happen at the retail level also for specific salespersons. So let's say you go to Best Buy, and they actually do not do this, or that's what they have told me. Best Buy is an electronics store. Okay, and you go in, and let's say one salesperson is trying to kind of push this particular brand of computer or laptop, Hewlett Packard, over, let's say, a Dell. Okay, it could very well be that Hewlett Packard has announced a trade contest, and essentially they have said if you can sell more than X number of laptops in a given month, for example, you get an extra discount from Hewlett Packard. That is, your commission as a salesperson is going to be higher than compared to when you don't sell as many HPs. So that's how it works. Any questions? Have you heard of this name called Best Buy?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
So this is an electronics store, right? So when you look at store names like Best Buy, these are also brand names, right? Like Nikon is a brand name, Canon is a brand name, like Best Buy is a brand name. Like India, if you go to Shoppers Stop is a brand name. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay. So any idea how they came up with the name Best Buy? And you know, if this came up during retailing, it would be an interesting discussion. But any idea without Googling? So very quickly, the original name for Best Buy was Sound of Music. Have you heard of the movie name Sound of Music?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so Best Buy, the name was Sound of Music. I think this was a Minneapolis company, or maybe still is. And you know, they weren't doing very well, so they decided to basically liquidate everything and go out of business. So what they did was to liquidate everything, to go out of business, basically, they attached these little kind of, you know, I guess stickers or these tags, if you will, to the products. They were yellow in color, and they kind of just wrote Best Buy on those tags. And as the story goes, I mean, they sold off everything so quickly. They said, you know, why not try again by changing our name to Best Buy? This tag seems to have worked. Maybe it was coincidental. Who knows, you know, why this thing happened, but they changed their name to Best Buy, and they have been in business ever since. So sometimes you come up with brand names in very strange ways. Any questions? No questions. Okay. So number 4 basically has to do with co-op or cooperative advertising allowance. Okay. And as you can see over here, not much to explain. The manufacturer supports a part of the dealers or the retailer's advertising cost that supports the sales promotion initiated by the manufacturer. So let's say, you know, GM is giving a $1,500 kind of rebate or a discount on their cars. They have to advertise this, right? The dealers have to advertise this. So the dealer and the manufacturer kind of gets together, and let's say the cost of advertising locally or regionally or nationally is $100. So the manufacturer steps in and says, look, we will pay $60, and you, all the dealers in this area together, will pay $40. Okay, so that's the idea of cooperative advertising allowance. So that's also a type of sales promotion to actually promote a sales promotion. Questions?
So,
Yes.
so the Suman. So you had
Yeah.
earlier mentioned that in the franchisee system of ownership under retailing, that the franchisor and the franchisees, they share the advertising and the promotion costs amongst between themselves.
Yeah.
So don't you think this is bound to only that form of ownership, cooperative and
No.
allowance?
Well, I mean, you know, here's the thing. For the second part of what you just described, this thing works. Okay, but for the first part, where let's say you're the franchisee, I'm the franchisor, and we have this agreement where we share, basically, you know, our advertising costs. Okay, it is a cooperation between two entities, no two ways about it. Okay,
Yes, sir.
but that basically money is used to advertise the brand name Subway or advertise the brand name McDonald's, regardless of whether a sales promotion is going on or not.
All right, sir.
Yeah. So again,
All
subtle
right.
differences, but you know, that's a very good question.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? So let's move forward and let's look at what we have next. Next, we have sales promotion decisions. What are some important decisions you have to take as somebody who's in charge of sales promotions? Okay. Well, here are the 3. The first one is size. You need to decide on how big the promotion is going to be. Is it going to be 30%? Is it going to be 80%? Or is it going to be a 10% discount? Okay. Now, you might be thinking, well, what's the big deal about these things? Okay. There is, you know, it's actually a very big deal in terms of, you know, what you should be using. So, for example, when you say it's at an 80% discount, we in pricing call it exaggerated discount. Okay? And studies have shown that consumers often make basically negative inferences when such huge discounts are given. Oftentimes, they will question the quality of the product. There are times when they will basically, think that, well, this must be out of fashion, otherwise they wouldn't have given 80% discount. Or you might say this is not a very popular product, nobody is buying it, and therefore, they're giving us 80% discount. So there has got to be some negative reason behind this 80% discount. Anybody wants to counter argue? So my question to you now is, how do you make this not a negative thing? When 80% is a big chunk of change that one can save, but things like, well, I don't know if this is in fashion, well, I don't know if the quality is good, etc., etc. These things cross your mind. Then out of 10, maybe 5 will fall for it and 5 won't. So how do we make it exciting for the 5 that will not fall for it? Any idea? Up to 80%, see, that is basically something that people can question even more. That's called tensile pricing or tensile discounts. And I have worked in that area also. The moment you say up to 80%, what will cross people's minds is that, well, maybe there are some that are at 80% off, and these are like, oversized shirts or pants. For my size, it's going to be 15% off. So there's an even greater negative reaction to the retailer. So what would you do to make 80% off exciting?
So we can make offer for a limited time. I mean, for
Okay,
one
so
day.
you put a time constraint, okay, for the next 2 hours only. Okay, so that basically sort of gives the consumer a reason to buy. It's like, oh, after 2 hours, it's going to go back to normal price. So it's not that they're trying to sell everything at 80% off. Okay, it's basically a good incentive they're giving for a limited period of time. What else? So that's a good one. What else? So today, many of you wish me happy Thanksgiving. So if I just add a line, okay, saying Thanksgiving sale, all of a sudden, the reason for offering this huge discount changes, and we are used to getting very low prices during Thanksgiving, and we say, okay, Thanksgiving sale. We don't even think of those negatives. So there are ways in which you can make an 80% off sale to those that kind of question those huge discounts, more exciting. So summer sale or fall sale, if you just say fall sale 80% off, I guarantee you they're going to view this as, oh, these are summer clothes, leftovers, nobody is buying it, so it's 80% off. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. But when you basically reduce the amount of time that it's going to be at 80% off, or you give a good reason, then people, there'll still be some skeptics. Don't misunderstand me. But for most of us, we have now a different reason to basically buy it at Black Friday sale. Okay. Now, on the other hand, if you offer a 10% sale, and retailers, manufacturers oftentimes cannot, for good reason, offer larger discounts. You offer a 10% off sale, and now people are saying, geez, only 10%. I don't know. This is not good. So there's a negativity associated with, very small discounts. Not only that, between 10 and 0%, oftentimes people ignore the discount. And sometimes because of the negativity associated, there's at least one study that shows that there's a boomerang effect, in the sense sales actually are lower than if you, for example, didn't give any discount. So for those retailers, for those manufacturers that cannot afford to give more than 10% off, how do you make this exciting? And this is actually, it's a long story. I'm actually currently working on several papers in this area, and we have found very interesting ways to make small discounts exciting. Okay, so let's move forward. Basically, you need to figure out the size of the discount. Then you need to decide on how exactly to distribute the message. Are you going to do it online, which will not live for a long time? It pops up and then vanishes. Maybe you can make sure that it keeps on popping up. Or do you want to basically send these direct mailers? Okay. Or you want to advertise on TV, or you want to advertise on radio, for example, during drive time, etc., etc., etc. You have to think of those kinds of things. Like Macy's, for example, over here, see the biggest one they sell, etc. I have several of the flyers sitting in my kitchen, on the kitchen island, basically because Thanksgiving is today and they have Black Friday and all these things. So they have sent me a lot of coupons and a lot of incentives, I guess, to go shop at Macy's. So that's how they're distributing. Or should it be multiple modes of distribution? If I get into my Facebook account, maybe some Macy's ad will pop up because I've been talking about Macy's over here. Who knows who's listening? But Facebook basically gives me the Macy's the Macy's ads. Okay, so those are decisions that you have to make. And finally, you have to make a decision on the duration. Is it going to be a one-day sale? Is it going to be basically a 3-day sale? Is it going to be this week sale, or is it a month-long sale? Or like I mentioned in India, outside the stores, you always have these banners hanging flat 40%. No matter when you go, in the morning, afternoon, evening, Friday, Monday, Wednesday, December, January, September, the same sign is hanging 24/7. So, I don't know how you guys look at those types of quote unquote discounts, but I totally ignore those things because, you cannot run a business. You cannot run a business when you are offering 40% off, true 40% off on an everyday basis. So essentially, to me, that's a lie, in the sense that 40% off, you're selling it at $60. That is the regular price at which you're making a decent profit. 40% off, when it is there all the time, basically signals to me that this is all fake. Any questions? Yeah. Okay, let's move forward and let's look at problems with sales promotion. This is important, so please, let's go. I think because it is not Zoom, you get to see everything at the same time, but hold your horses, read. We'll have like something called the borrowing effect, and this A, B, and C. Read these one at a time. Okay. The first problem with sales promotion is what we just discussed like 2 seconds ago. It reduces the perceived value of the offer. When you say flat 40% off, okay, all the time, okay, and if you're saying this thing costs $100 and it is basically on sale for $60 all the time, what happens, at least in my mind and in the minds of many others, is that I think this product actually is not worth $100. Its true value is $60. So if I buy that product, whatever it is, let's say a pair of dress pants, I'm not buying it because I'm saving $40. I am buying it because I think $60 is a good value for money. Regardless, what has happened is that because of abuse of the sales promotion or overuse of sales promotion, the value of that product actually has gone down in the minds of the consumers. It happens here, for example, in the furniture industry all the time. Every weekend you'll see the same sofa and the love seat for sale. They'll say $1,699 for the sofa and the love seat, on sale $999. Every weekend you see exactly the same sofa and the love seat for $999, and $1,699 is crossed out like this. Okay? If you buy that sofa and the love seat because you like the design, you think the quality is fine, most of us wouldn't buy that because we are saving $700. We will buy it because we think $999 is a decent value for money when it comes to that sofa and that love seat. That's it. So the value of the product has gone down in the minds of the consumer. So never really have a sale going on all the time, because it's just not believed by the consumers. Questions? Okay, so I'm assuming that it's clear. Let's move forward to what's known as the borrowing effect. What is this? Okay, so I mentioned when we met on Tuesday that when you offer promotions, for example, coupons, people tend to buy more. So instead of 2 cans of soups, I'll buy 4. Okay. The other two, number 3 and number 4 can, I would have, bought maybe next week or in the following week. So what has happened is this promotion that you have given me has resulted in borrowing future sales, which means what? I have bought today what I would have bought next week or the week after. Are we good on that? On 2A? What it means by borrowing future sales? Are we still connected, or I'm just talking to my computer? Okay, good. All right. So promotion can result in borrowing future sales. So what happens as a result of that is very intuitive, that sales sharply increase. So sales will go up like crazy this week, Black Friday, okay? And then boom, over the next 2 weeks, it'll take a nosedive. No, I mean, after Black Friday, it might not take as big as a nosedive as I'm sort of trying to imply, because, with Christmas coming, people will be shopping, etc., etc. But, under normal circumstances, sales will go up sharply, and then it'll decline also sharply. So as a result of that, what happens is, profits might be less since bulk of sales is done at the lower price. Profits might be, that's the critical phrase, might be less since bulk of the sales is done at a lower price. So this is the idea of the borrowing effect, which means you sell more now. Sorry, my bad. You buy more now. That is, you buy things now that you have bought in the future. So your sales go up sharply now, and as a result of which you sell a lot more at a lower price. So overall, when you look at a week's profit, a month's profit, for example, your profit is likely to go down oftentimes because of sales promotion. Does it happen all the time? No. Is it okay for basically profit to go down in the short run because you're basically competing with others in the marketplace and you have deep pockets? You can take a cut in your profit, and once those competitors go out of business, and there's a legality issue over here, which we will discuss in pricing, you will be the sole, I guess, player in the marketplace, and then you can increase your profits. I'm not saying you should be doing that, but some companies do that. Questions? Any questions? Is there any government control over promotion sales? When we go into pricing, we will talk about something that's known as predatory pricing. Now, there is no law against something that's called loss leader pricing. And I'm not telling you what it is right now, but because I'll talk about this when we get into pricing. There's no laws against loss leader pricing, but there are laws against predatory pricing. And if you basically, it's proven in the courts that you have engaged in predatory pricing, there could be serious implications of that, serious penalties involved with that, etc., etc. Any other questions? No. Okay. I think that was the last slide, right? Yes. Okay, so if we are ready, we will talk about personal selling. So pull up those slides and let's get started. Okay. All right, looks like we have 62 of us in this class, so I guess 61 and 62 must be myself and Raki. We have 60 students, or do we have more students than that are enrolled in this class. That is kind of amazing that on Thanksgiving Day, everybody showed up. Maybe, I have some extra students. I don't know from where they're listening to me, but anyways. Okay. Questions, folks? No questions. So let's move forward and let's talk about personal selling. And once we're done with personal selling, we will be done with the third P of the marketing mix. After this, we will get into the domain of pricing, which will happen, I guess, when we come back next week. So here are the 4 major characteristics of personal selling. 4 major characteristics of personal selling. Okay. First one is dyadic communication. Okay. Dyadic communication. Let me see here. So I'll explain this. Second one is customized presentation. And then we have answer objections. And then fourth one is opportunity to close the sale. Okay. So what do we mean by dyadic communication? Dyadic communication means two-way flow of communication. Okay. So the seller talks to the potential buyer and the potential buyer talks to the seller. So what happens is that the potential buyer can ask clarification questions and the seller can clarify the issues that the buyer has problems with. So the communication flows in both directions. As compared to that, in advertising, communication flows in one direction only. Okay, communication flows in one direction only. Now, what has happened these days is that if you look at online ads, oftentimes when you click on those ads, what pops up on your screen, basically, let's say on your right at the bottom. When you click on an ad, what might pop up?
Swipe up.
No, there's a box that comes up. And there's basically a silhouette shows up. No, not sale alert. I mean, they'll say, can I help you? We can chat. You with me? So what is happening basically is they're combining this idea of advertising with personal selling online. So they'll say, can we chat? Do you have any questions? And so you're looking at this ad, and let's say you want to ask, okay, how much is this going to cost? What kind of warranties and guarantees are there? How is it going to be delivered? What kind of service do you offer? You can actually ask those questions right then and there. Okay, so technology has enabled us to do certain things that we couldn't do 5 years ago, 10 years ago, so on and so forth. Anyways, the basic difference here is that personal selling, you have a dyadic communication, the opportunity for dyadic communication, and then for advertising, it's basically the communication happens only in one direction. The second key element or characteristic of personal selling is that you can engage in customized presentation of information. When it comes to advertising, it's basically the same message that goes to a target audience. The same message that goes to a target audience. Rarely will you find, or rarely will you see, even in this high-tech age, that an ad is being targeted to a market of one. Okay, it's targeted to basically several individuals or a large number of individuals. But when it comes to personal selling, presentation is almost always customized. Okay, so let's say I go to buy a car at this Honda dealership and I'm looking at the Honda Civic, and Suman, because I can see his name over here, he also goes to the same Honda dealership and is interested in exactly the same car. Do you think the salesperson, even it is the same salesperson, okay, let's say Molly Kumar is the salesperson, okay, that he's going to sell this car to us in exactly the same way? The answer is, for most of us, a resounding no. Why do you think that Molly Kumar has to customize his presentation for Suman versus me? or for let's say Sigma versus Suman? Why? Tell me a little bit more. Talk. Don't send text, because after a while it'll send. Tell me that there are a lot of texts and I won't even know how to read because I have to go back and forth. I mean, why would Molly Kumar, for example, sell the same car differently to Suman versus Sigma, or Suman versus me versus Sigma?
Well, so this is Dari. So
Yeah.
in my own perception, I'm thinking that in the case of personal selling, you are able to specifically address the need of different customers. Some
Okay.
customers might want to might need more information because just like we said, some customers might have good product
So
knowledge.
Darren, use the examples that I gave you. First was Suman versus me. The second one was, let's say Suman versus Sigma. So tell me, take these two cases and explain to me, why would Molly Kumar come up with customized presentation for me versus Suman, or Suman versus Sigma?
Oh, okay. I'll give an example related to
No, no,
enrolling.
talk about us. Talk about us. We are the example. Me versus Suman. Suman
Yes.
versus Sigma.
Okay, yes, I was going to give an example using you and Suman, right? So let's say, for example, you want to enroll your child in a school, and Suman also wants to enroll his own child in a school. So, for example, based on your own knowledge of the particular location and probably his own limited knowledge of the location, if I'm coming
Mhm.
to advertise to you, I'll need to, do a lot more to convince you because you have more information about where I'm trying to advertise to you, unlike Suman, who
But
might have
but
limited
Darren,
information.
let's make it very simple. Okay, but that much
Okay.
simpler. To the best of my knowledge, Suman doesn't have a kid. Suman, do you?
Not yet, sir.
Not yet. Good. Are you sure?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I'm just asking. Okay, and I know, and Darren, I don't have a child in the sense that I'll drive around in a car.
Okay.
Okay.
So I can.
So
Okay.
what's the difference between Suman and me?
Sorry.
What
What's the
would be
question
one
again?
one one factor if it stares at you? What would be one factor? What's the difference between Suman and me?
Well, the age difference. I can
Age
see a
difference.
big
Okay, age,
difference.
that is the thing, that age factor, right? So do you
Yeah.
think that our needs could vary based on our age? We are at different stages of our life.
Yes. Yes. There's every possibility
Maybe
that your
because
needs might.
Suman is young and he's going to drive around with his girlfriend. I mean, he needs to have the interior, which is basically really flashy, looks good, looks cool, so he can impress our
Yeah.
girlfriend. Okay,
Yeah.
and at my age, maybe because I fall asleep when I'm driving. I don't care how the interior looks like, but it would be nice to have basically a hand on the steering wheel, a third hand which will slap me and wake me up if I'm falling asleep. Okay, so again, so basically you have to look at the individuals and you have to tell people, basically sell them on the basis of that. You tell me, sir, when you go, will fall asleep, here's that hand, it'll slap you and wake you up. But Suman, you don't even tell him about the hand. It'll slap him when he's trying to do something. Kiss his girlfriend, for example. Maybe the hand will slap him, but don't tell him that. Okay, so that's the story. So between Suman and Sigma, for example, the big the difference is we're looking at gender
Yeah.
difference. And
Okay.
there's nothing right or wrong about it. Depending on your gender, you might want certain things in cars and may not want certain things in cars. You see, so very simple reason as to why you should customize presentation. And if you want to compare, let's say Sigma with me, there's a gender difference, there's also an age difference. So basically, it's like two factors all of a sudden.
Mm.
Okay, so that's how you should be thinking. So the moment we step into the auto dealership, if you are an experienced salesperson, very, very, very quickly, you have to identify my needs, what I'm looking for, and kind of, hone in on those needs and not talk about, the other external stuff and get me distracted.
So, okay, sir, I have a question. If
Yeah.
you're coming into an auto dealership shop, let's say you want to buy
Mhm.
something, and
Mhm.
I don't know too much about you, it's possible that I might have a general, I might have a sort of misconception thinking that you would like something a little bit um, geriatric or something, something not too fancy, but conversely, it might be that you're actually looking out for something similar to that. So how do you overcome such a challenge, like something irrational, so to say?
Well, I mean, you come and you shake your hand and, may I help you? What are you looking for? You ask those questions and you're trying to assess me in some ways. Whether we agree or not, right or wrong, we stereotype people, right? Okay, the first thing happens is when I'm walking into a dealership, now it has changed a bit, but in my younger days, they'd almost always send a younger salesperson basically to talk to me. I'd never get somebody in the 60s or 70s to come and talk to me because if I'm in my 30s or 40s, there would be a disconnect with somebody in the 70s. So the first thing is to match, basically age match, kind of age match. Gender doesn't have to match. It could be a lady, it could be a man, but they would send and they would ask certain types of questions. Now, one thing that experienced salespeople over here know, okay, is that the moment they see me, they know that I'm of Indian origin. It doesn't matter how long I've lived here, whether I was born over here. If my sons go to buy a car, they'll say, okay, Indian origin. And then the next thing that anybody who knows anything about Indians and how we love to bargain, they'll know that we're going to bargain hard. Okay, so they are sort of mentally prepared to face those kinds of situations. Besides that, they'll ask questions like, is it for you or your significant other? How are you going to be using it? And sometimes you don't even have to ask those questions. I'll go in and tell them, look, this is exactly what I need. So, for example, the last Jeep, Wrangler that I got, and I'm not saying bought, because I leased it. Okay, I walked in and I talked to this guy from whom I've, I guess, leased two other cars before. So I said, look, this is what we need. It needs to be a soft top because my wife is going to drive, and she says that it's easier to remove soft tops, and then basically so that she can by herself remove the top, and she wants a red Wrangler. And it has to say Willis written on it. Why Willis? This is interesting consumer behavior. Okay, for those of you that are from Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh, okay, we used to have long time ago these Willys Jeeps, if you recall. Okay, so it's the same company, Jeep Wrangler, but they have a Willis edition, and basically, it reminds my wife of her childhood days, and that is why she wanted that. And so price to a large degree was not an issue. At this stage of her life, those are the things she wants. So those are the things that she will get. So, basically that's how the transaction was completed. The more specific you are, the less flexible you are, the less you can negotiate on the price. If you say, I don't care, what color this Jeep is, if it's pink, I'll still take it. You can negotiate on the price. Questions?
Sir, while
Okay.
selling,
Yeah, go ahead.
while selling the different customer with the same product, should we consider the culture background of those customers?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean,
Okay.
absolutely, yes. When you look at, for example, a country like India, it's a very, very, very diverse country. It's like mini Europe.
Yes.
There's incredible cultural diversity in India.
Yeah.
I mean, to the extent that it's very interesting. I cannot get into international marketing. Okay, what we teach in international marketing is actually country boundaries quite do not matter. It's the ethnicity, it's the culture that is important. So, to give you my own example, culturally, I'm a lot more similar to a Bangladeshi, for example, compared to, let's say, an Indian from the southern part of India or the northern part of India or northeastern part of India. You see, what happens is, our language is the same. Of course, there are dialects. Our rituals, for example, are very similar in a lot of ways. It's just that the majority religion in this part of Bengal versus that part of Bengal is different. And as a result of which, there are some cultural differences, but there are tons of cultural similarities.
Yes.
I mean, so much so that actually, the national anthem of India and the national anthem of Bangladesh are written by the same, the national anthems are written by the same person.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's how we look at things in international markets. I mean, if you were to draw the line where I'm sitting in Detroit, I mean, in Ann Arbor, and say, hey, that's Canada, this is USA, and you guys are different. No, I mean, what's the difference between somebody living in Windsor versus or in Toronto versus somebody living in this area? Except for the fact that Canadians love to say "eh," like, oh, you want French fries with your hamburger, eh? We don't say that. I mean, they say cutlery and we say silverware, but that's about it. So there aren't a whole lot of differences. Anyways, okay. But your question is well taken. If you have to look at cultural differences.
Okay, sir. Got it.
Even in a country like India, you have to look at cultural differences. We don't think alike.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. The third thing is, when it comes to personal selling, you can answer objections. You can answer objections. So, for example, when we went to get this Jeep, the red Jeep, there was a red Jeep there, but then and they wanted to sell that to me, but I said no, it doesn't have these safety features. So it doesn't have the rear, I guess, view camera and the side warning lights and all these things, and I'm not going to take this. So that was a very strong objection. They could not overcome that objection. They couldn't justify not having those safety features. Okay, so they said, oh, in that case, we'll have to order a Jeep. And I said, fine, let's order a Jeep. And I ordered it and got kind of put together, in a Jeep plant, which is 50 miles down from here in Toledo, Ohio. Okay, so you can answer objections basically, and we'll talk about how you can answer objections. And finally, this is a biggie. You have the opportunity to close the sale. In advertising, I hear you, I get interested in you, I'm excited about you, for example. But personal selling is where you can actually close the sale. You will get me to sign on the dotted line. So, Dare, what is your issue with answering objections in a personal selling situation?
Sir, I didn't get the explanation, so I was just trying to.
So what does it mean, answer objections?
Like respond to contrary perception or something.
So let's say you want to go to a concert, all night long concert, and you're trying to sell this idea to your mom.
Okay.
And we have done this as kids, selling our ideas. Getting permission is selling ideas, right?
Yes.
And your mom says, no, Darren, are you crazy? You're not going to be there all night. out there all night. That's an objection, right?
Yeah.
So what would you do to get past that objection?
I have to give reasons, like talk to her, tell her that okay, try to convince her to see, from my
So
own
that's
point of
the
view.
basic idea. Not that your mom will be convinced or will let you go, but at least you will have the opportunity to answer those objections.
Okay.
And the same is true in case of sales.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
let's move forward. Okay, so I'll show you some examples over here of personal selling, why it's important. Okay, so look at this. Any clue what's going on? So this guy looks like what? Military. Yep. So he is in the US military. Okay. So what they do, Stephen, you might know, I don't know how it is in Canada, they will actually approach high school kids. So if you're 18, you can serve in the military. If you're 18, you can vote. If you're 18, you cannot drink. Isn't that sad? Okay. Anyways, so yes, Stephen, recruiters. So they'll go to high schools. They'll also at times basically call the parents and get permission and come and visit, the young folks at home, and they try to sell this career in the military. Nobody wakes up, except maybe if your parents happen to be in the military. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to join the US Marines, or I'm going to join the US Navy or the Air Force or the US Army. Hardly anybody does that. Okay, you sort of get acculturized into this thing. So they come and actually they sell you this idea. Okay, and they have done it with our sons also. So they'll tell you, for example, the benefits that you will get once you get an honorable discharge from the military. So your college education will be funded. You might have health insurance coverage, this, that, and everything. And they train you in certain ways in the military so that you basically gain life skills when you come out to the civilian world. You'll be able to adjust in certain ways. You'll be able to, for example, get certain types of jobs and on and on and on. And they have other, I guess, I guess sellable points also. So I have a colleague at my university whose son actually went to the Air Force medical school. So his entire medical education was free. All he has to do is he has to serve in the Air Force, and he can choose to be a part of the Air Force, for example, forever and pursue a career, medical career in the Air Force. Or if he serves for a certain number of years, he can opt out and he can go back to civilian life. Okay, so personal selling is important in the sense that for certain types of careers, those careers have to be sold. Okay, all right. What do they do in Nigeria, Tare?
Well, I don't know much about military, but I'm guessing they have something like that, but not exactly. I don't think I've
So
heard
you
about
don't
it.
want to join the military?
I don't think I'm fit for that. I'm not
Why
some.
not?
I don't know. I just don't see myself doing that. I don't.
Yeah.
I prefer to
Actually,
be a
I have a good
civilian.
friend. I have a good friend who, I mean, we never thought he'd ever go anywhere close to a military base. He actually ended up joining the military and doing pretty well.
Well, I don't think I can go for the training. I'm not. I don't think I'm fit for that.
I don't know. Don't underestimate yourself, man.
Mm,
So, okay, all right.
all right.
So let's move forward and let's look at some of the examples. What's going on over here? No idea? Date. Speed dating. Yep, Stephen. Speed dating is going on over here. So you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pictures of Marilyn Monroe, and then all of a sudden you have Mao Zedong over there. So I have no idea, why they chose the pictures that they chose. So what is happening over here is, and Dare, this is the stage that you're at. Do they have this speed dating concept in Nigeria? No, maybe you should start this business. Okay, get people to register, do background check, so there's not a stalker or a killer there, and then basically you'll make a lot of money. So here we have ladies sitting over here on this side, okay, and then you have the guys over here, okay, and they have a couple of minutes to talk to these charming ladies and kind of sell themselves. And you can clearly tell that this young woman is not interested in guys at this time. She's only interested in food. Okay, so good for her. All right. So, over here you have the ladies that are sitting, the guys over here, 2 minutes, and you exchange information. And then, for example, if you click, maybe you'll get a text or a phone call, and then maybe go on a, on a date, and then on a serious date, and so on and so forth. Is there anybody in this class who has tried this and can share your experience with us? Well, the silence is very interesting. Yeah, I mean, this is interesting. Everybody says no. In every class that I've discussed this, everybody says no, but this concept survives. So some people must be, lying, but that's okay. Okay. So now tell me, you see these two rows over here, who has more control over the process and why? Who has more control over the process and why? Rinita, you're saying Ling Zong saying girl. The ladies, Ritika says, okay, guy. Okay. So, okay, here's the thing. Okay. To me, if you are 18 years old or more, you are no longer a girl or a boy. You're a young man or a young woman. I know, or a lady, of course, but sometimes she's 19 years old. I mean, and say, "Hey, lady, they're going to come and kill you." So you can say miss, but never a girl. But I've seen like in India, I guess that's true also in Bangladesh and Pakistan, in matrimonial ads. You say, boy 35 years old looking for a girl 30 years old to get married. And I'm like, when are you guys going to grow up? Okay. Anyways, so it's never never a girl when it's 18 or more. But over here, folks, actually, the young ladies, they have more control over the process. They have more control over the process. Why? Because this is the studies in psych have shown that they are static, they are not moving. So they have more control over the process. Because these guys are moving, they have less control over the process. See the big smile on the face of the ladies in my class. And Dare, poor Dare, console him. Is Sandra here? Console Dare. Talk to him about your sister. Again, I mean, maybe he won't cry anymore. So yeah, look at him. There's a flood in Nigeria, in Lagos. Look at Dare's, tears coming down. So poor fellow. Okay, all right. So let's move forward and let's look at other, whatever it is. I'm the lady with the food. Yeah. Oh, okay. So Sigma, you're not interested in this, in dating. I understand. Sigma and Sharon, what about them?
So more comfortable with the food rather than the boys.
Again, boys, don't get into boys, get into like men.
Yeah, whatsoever.
Yeah, boys are underage. You will go to jail if you do that. Okay, all right. Good. If you like food, more power to you. All right, let's move forward. Never knew personal selling would be this exciting. We're getting stuck on, this speed dating and all these things. All right. So here we have, what do we have over here? This Tupperware product? I don't know about how it works in other parts of the world, but we have these Tupperware parties where they sell these products, or we used to have them. Okay. Not only that, in this part of the world, they have these vacuum cleaners that they sell, expensive vacuum cleaners. I don't know what they vacuum for, $3,000, $4,000, but they have these basically, they're not vacuum cleaner parties, but they will come and sell to you, personal selling. Okay. And then, do you know what these are, ladies? Taser guns?
Electroshock weapons.
So basically, I don't know if it's allowed in your countries, but this is for self-protection. I guess in a lot of countries you can use those pepper sprays to protect yourself. Okay, but these are basically tasers, and you can basically keep the bad guy away by using these taser guns. And it's interesting that these skins, for example, it's interchangeable, so they will match your dress. So if you're wearing a red kind of top, you can change it to red. If you're wearing a black top, you can change it to black. This is purple top. So it's all kind of fancy stuff. Okay. I was actually at a party, this was a long time ago in the early 80s. Okay. And they were selling kitchen utensils. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Christmas gift. So they're selling kitchen utensils. So they would come to the homes and they would actually serve food for free. So we were invited, okay? So basically they were selling kitchen utensils made out of surgical steel, and supposedly there was a compartment over here with some kind of a fluid. So what they were saying is that, you have the flames over here, and when you boil water, because of this fluid, the heat is distributed uniformly and you can cook faster. And they would take their pot and the regular pot, and they'll show you by boiling water how this water gets contaminated because of whatever reasons. And they basically says that the food is also pure, you cook quickly, you save a lot of energy, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, some to come to cook in your home. Okay, but the problem was I was a very, very, very poor graduate student, and the prices of these utensils, kitchen utensils, gave me a heart attack. Okay, so obviously I couldn't afford those then. I don't think I can afford those now. I told them if I'm going to spend that much money on the pots and pans, I will have nothing to put in those pots and pans to cook for myself. and I didn't have that kind of money, but it was an interesting experience, sales experience. Okay, so that's how they sell these products. Okay, so let's move forward and let's look at what else we have. Well, all the examples are gone. So here we have the basic sales task. The basic sales tasks. One is order taking. So ladies and gentlemen, here the primary focus is on building repeat sales. So this, let's say retailer has already bought stuff from you. Let's say you're Frito-Lay and you supply chips. Okay, boxes and boxes and boxes of different varieties of chips. So they already, like the 7-Eleven in front of the business school building in Windsor, they already buy from you. So you walk in and you basically look at what's on the shelf. And if you see that the supply is kind of low, you talk to the manager and you ask, how many boxes of chips do you need for this week? And you basically supply them with those chips, and maybe you restock those shelves with those chips. Okay, so the primary focus is to build repeat sales, which also means that little selling is done in a conventional sense, which means you don't really have to sell the idea, you don't have to sell the product. It is kind of pre-sold. You've been supplying them with this product forever, so you don't really have to sell the product. As opposed to that, you have this concept of order getting, taking versus getting, okay? Order getting, and this is where you sell in a conventional sense. So you aggressively seek out possible buyers and you convert prospects into customers. So insurance company, salespeople do this all the time. Okay, now let's talk about the book that I've recommended for this course. How do you suppose we as professors choose the books that we recommend for the courses that we teach? Well, what happens is that somebody, a salesperson, comes to us, approaches us from the publishers, the publishing house, and they basically sell us their products. Now, there are many books that can be used for this basic level course, so I have to choose one over the 5 other books that are available. So, maybe 2 or 3 salespeople will approach me and they will tell me about the merits of their book and the side service that they will offer in terms of, test banks, for example, study guides, for example, and in this day and age of online teaching, how they can help you create tests online, etc., 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 how updated the examples are, and also the soft copy of the book is also available where they update examples on a real-time basis, etc., etc. So those are some of the things that they will tell us to make us buy their books. Okay, and how do they seek out people like us, the possible buyers? Well, they can look at the university listing of classes, who's teaching those classes, and based on that they can do it. They can go to, for example, academic conferences, and from there can find out who's teaching marketing management, for example, and talk to them at those conferences. Or they have bookstalls over there where we go as professors and we ask for sample books, and that's when we have to fill out a form and they collect information on us so that they can get back to us and say, hey, remember you saw us during this conference and you took this book, and did you find it helpful? I mean, are you interested in the book? Can we help you, etc., etc., etc. So that's the idea of order getting. So let me stop for like a minute and let you digest order taking versus order getting, and then I'll move forward. Okay, so let's move forward now and let's talk about this kind of strange title over here. It says supporting role. Okay, so if you happen to be or if you're playing a supporting role in the domain of sales, you're essentially working in sales support. So you could be an engineer, for example, and a part of the sales team, and you're going for the sales presentation, and you are the woman or you are the man who will be answering the technical questions that might come up. I'm the salesperson. I have general knowledge about this, this equipment that we are trying to sell, but anything beyond just the general knowledge, if it comes to highly scientific knowledge or very technical questions, right? The sales engineer lady that's with me, she is going to actually answer those questions. So you're playing a supporting role. Or you happen to be, or if you happen to be, sorry, in pharmaceutical sales, that's also in some ways, it doesn't look like it's supporting role, but it's supporting in the sense you go to the physicians and you talk about the merits of your, products that your company is marketing, and you sell the idea, and eventually the physician's office or the pharmacy, actually, medical representatives, the pharmacy or the physician's office will order it from somebody else. Maybe that will be an order taker who will come in and get the orders, but your role is to basically educate the physicians and the pharmacists about this fantastic new product or the products that your company has come up with. So order taking, order getting, and supporting role, these are the three basic sales tasks. Questions? Very good. Let's move forward. Now let's look at the personal selling process. Okay. Normally I bring this thing in later, and that's why there's a slide moving forward, but okay. Let's now pretend that this is not here. So the personal selling process has 7 steps. And isn't it nice that they're color-coded? So why do you think they're color-coded? I mean, I just became a kid and I started using my crayons, or maybe there's a reason behind it.
Based on their importance.
Based on the importance of segments. Yeah, I mean, they're all important, but segments. So Dario, what do you mean by segments? Sales tasks.
Maybe there are stages. There are stages where each of these categories have been utilized. Like it comes in different stages. Maybe the first 3 stages represent something. The middle, that's the fourth one, represent another thing entirely. And
So let me give you a hint, Dario.
Okay.
The middle, the fourth section, it says this is the presentation stage.
Yes.
Remember, says interaction before, interaction after. That's good. Okay. So if this is the presentation stage, then what is this stage?
I think that is where you get to tell the customer like exactly what you want to really tell them about. Like I want to tell them about the product exactly. That is where you get to
So
tell
that's
them exactly.
presentation.
Yes.
That's presentation. See, marketing can sometimes be quite intuitive. If this is the presentation stage, then this is the
Preparation.
pre-presentation stage.
Mm-hmm.
Preparation, yep. So if this is the pre-presentation stage, what is this stage?
The
Bringing in leads.
post-presentation.
Post-presentation stage. Okay, so this is how you, very intuitive. So don't sit and memorize like this for the exam, swinging back and forth. Think, conceptualize, and it'll come back to you. Okay, so this is the post-presentation stage. Okay, so let's talk about it. That's why I color coded it. So in the pre-presentation stage, you do some homework and then you approach the individual. Okay, so you have to first do what's known as prospecting. Prospecting. What is prospecting? It's the process of searching for, identifying, and this is very, very, very important, qualifying prospects. It's the process of searching for, identifying, and qualifying prospects. We talked about, I give you the example of how do we decide on the book that you use for the class. Well, somebody has looked us up. Somebody has identified who we are, what class we teach, and then they have qualified us as prospects. There's a reason why I have underlined qualifying. Okay, so let's look at prospecting. Let's move forward. I think the next 2 slides have to do with prospecting, and then we'll come back to number 2, pre-approach and approach, and I'll use an example to illustrate these things, and then we'll move forward again. So prospecting, basically, where do you look for buyers? How do you find them? Well, you talk to current customers, You see if they want to buy again, or if they know somebody who will buy. You go to trade shows. Okay, we used to own a small business. We used to go to trade shows to do prospecting. Networking events. That's where you can get prospects. Basically, the internet, for example. There are a variety of ways in which you can find people that essentially are likely to buy your product. Okay, so we talked about prospecting. It's the process of searching for, identifying. So you search this way, you identify this way, but you haven't quite qualified them yet. And qualifying prospects. So we're looking at this, qualifying prospects. Okay, so how do you qualify prospects, or what does it mean to be qualified as a prospect, or who is a qualified prospect? Who is a qualified prospect? So let's look at this. What car is this? It's a Bentley, right? It's a Bentley, okay? So when you ask the question, or you try to find out a qualified prospect, you have to address these three issues. Number one is, will benefit. So let me basically put myself here, okay? Let me, basically, let me paint myself as a prospect. So now you have to find out if I qualify as a prospect. Will I benefit from a Bentley? Trust me, I'll benefit from a Bentley. It'll take me to the grocery store. It has enough trunk space for my grocery bags. It'll bring me back home. It'll take me to my university. It'll bring me back home. So I will benefit from a Bentley. Good? Will you agree that I'll benefit from a Bentley? Yes. The second one is, do I have the authority to buy a Bentley? Do I have the authority to buy a Bentley? The answer is, well, I think I have the authority to buy a Bentley. My wife might think otherwise. So as long as she doesn't know, I have the authority to buy a Bentley. Wonderful. So I'm going to buy, basically will benefit from buying a Bentley. I have the authority, or that's what I think I do. Okay. But can I afford to buy a Bentley? The answer is not till I win the Michigan lottery. Okay. Not till I win the Michigan lottery. So even though I'll benefit from a Bentley, I have the authority, or I think I have the authority to buy a Bentley. I am not a qualified prospect because I can't afford it. So those are the three things, okay, that you'll have to look at when you try to qualify a prospect. All right. So, folks, let's move backwards and let's look at what we had before. We're talking about qualified prospects. Okay. So process of searching for, identifying, and qualifying a prospect. So let me give you another example. And we'll talk about auto dealerships. So when you go to an auto dealership, they try to very quickly qualify you. Okay, they're not looking, they didn't have to search, you walked in. They didn't have to identify you, you walked into the dealership, but they have to qualify you. Otherwise, they shouldn't be spending time with you, because it's fair enough. They shouldn't be wasting time on somebody who's not going to qualify. So how do you suppose they qualify a prospective buyer? Somebody, don't text, voice.
Sir,
How do you suppose they qualify a prospective buyer?
By seeing the attire of a customer.
Okay, by seeing the attire of the customer, goes Molly Kumar. What else?
The age.
But sorry?
The age of the customer.
The age of the customers. Okay, what else?
The relationship status.
But how would you know the relationship status, Dare?
Well, if the person is wearing
Relationship with the business or with the person next to him or her?
No, the person is wearing a ring. I can tell that this person is married.
How do you know?
Putting on the wedding ring.
I don't have a wedding ring.
Well, some do.
Yeah. You see my hand? There's no wedding ring. And my, like the traditional Indian women, they'll have this red mark in their head when they're married. My wife doesn't wear those things.
Okay, so
now Dare has an important, problem, I guess mystery to solve.
Oh well,
Okay, what
what
else?
else?
So, I guess all of your answers are correct. I mean, everybody, so by looking at the attire and knowledge about the product, so you start a conversation and you try to qualify the prospect, okay? So what happens, I mean, who said, Molly Kumar says attire. So Molly Kumar, what I normally do, and I know that, anecdotal evidence is doesn't prove anything, I will intentionally, I will show, they'll look at, but I will intentionally underdress when I go to an auto dealership.
Oh,
And sometimes I won't even shave.
Prof, why?
Huh?
Why?
Why? Because I want to see, no, not barefooted, man. Maybe in flip-flops. They'll give discounts to a poor guy walking in flip-flops and shorts. So why do you think I do that, Chandra?
so maybe you are
With, no,
testing the.
Daddy, why are you saying with cap? Do you see my hair? If it's not very cold, I don't wear cap or hats. So why do you think I underdress?
Well, the only thing I can say is maybe you want a good deal. Like
The what?
a good deal. You want a good deal. Like to get, they won't perceive you as somebody who is like rich. That's the only thing I can
Yeah, that could be a factor that, I don't want them to feel that just because I'm wearing, nice clothes that I'm rich, which I'm not.
say. Okay.
Okay, so I go in, just look very kind of common and sometimes I do that just to kind of play with them. And it has happened with age. I mean, in my younger days, I was different, but now I just go to play with them. And at times I just kind of sit there, listen to them play dumb as if I have no idea, nothing, and just kind of nod my head. So there's a
So might,
variety of reasons, right? Sorry?
might be possibility you are testing the
Yeah.
selling skill of the salespersons for your research purpose.
Yeah, the only thing is I don't do sales research, but there's a big stream of research in the area of sales and personal selling. That is true. Okay, so qualifying prospects, identifying and qualifying. Let me tell you a story, and then we'll move on. So this was way back, when I was at my previous university. Okay, so I was in my office. This was a Saturday, and in those days we didn't have laptops, so it was desktops in the office. I was working with a graduate student of mine. This was Saturday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So we were tired. So I told him, let's go. And this was basically the university big campus. And in the summers, in the parking lots, they would pitch all these tents, the local auto dealerships, and there would be a huge kind of exhibition of automobiles, and people would come. There'd be music, free food, and they would also sell cars. Okay, all the local dealers would come. So there's a lot of fun. So my grad student and I, this is Saturday, we were walking the office, so I was, in a pair of jeans and t-shirt, and he was, I guess, in also jeans and t-shirt, and, wearing flip-flops. So we, walked in the direction of all these tents, various dealerships in town. And I actually was interested in getting a Toyota, Toyota 4Runner. So I went to the Toyota dealership, that place, and I kind of stood there waiting for somebody to come and say, hi, can we help you? And no, I knew that there were people there, saw me, but nobody paid any attention. So I stood there for a while, okay, and then finally, to make a long story short, this more than middle-aged African American gentleman, came to me and said, can I help you? I said, yeah, I was interested eventually in getting a 4Runner, so I wanted to kind of test drive a 4Runner. So, he looks at me kind of up and down like this, and then, he asks me two questions. So he said, okay, yeah, may I ask, what car you drive now? Because his thing was whether you want to trade it in. What car you drive now, and where do you live, by the way? So I told him what car, I was driving at the time, and where I lived, and his looks completely changed. He goes, wait, 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 let me come back. And he runs in and gets a key for the Forerunner and goes, here's the Forerunner. Why don't you take this key and go drive and come back? Go on the highway and drive for 10 miles, 15 miles, and then come back and let me know how it is. And then I go, oh, okay, you don't want my driver's license and you don't want to make a copy of this? No, no, no. You basically are on campus. Just go. And then, as we're getting in, wait, let me get you some Coke or Pepsi. What would you like to drink as you're driving around? So brings, a can of Coke for me, a can of Coke from a grad student, and off we go. We drive this thing around. So this was an interesting experience. I don't blame that guy. If I were in his shoes, I'd do the same thing. Why would I want to spend time with somebody who, perhaps wouldn't quote unquote qualify for whatever reasons, for this product that I'm selling? I mean, and it could very well be, that, rich guy comes, but, it's a young fellow with 4 kids and is looking at a Porsche with 2 seats. I mean, that's not a qualified prospect. So you don't want to waste time, on him selling a 2-seater. You might focus on basically the Porsche SUVs and try to sell this individual those cars. Anyways, so that's the idea of qualification. Approach. Again, I'll basically, this is where you walk into somebody's office or somebody walks into your office and you shake hands and you basically are ready to make the presentation. So what do you do in case of number 2, which is pre-approach? This is where you do your homework. So let me explain this with the help of an example. So when I started my first job at my previous university, this was 1988, and this was in the fall of 1988. In the winter of 1989, we call it spring semester, I received a phone call from this guy called John Bible. So he introduced himself and he said that, look, I have an office on campus. At that university, we had this building where this was called the incubator, where small businesses basically were given space and they, the university helped them develop their business. And once they reached a certain level, then they would go out and find their own places. But till then, they would be there at a very, very, very low, I guess, rent that they would pay. And the university would help them, like I said before. So he basically was into selling insurance, life insurance, this insurance, that insurance, and also in financial planning. All right. So he introduced himself to me and I said, yeah, I'm starting out my career, insurance, financial planning. Let's talk. I don't know if I'm going to buy anything from him, but it doesn't hurt to talk. So we set up an appointment for a Wednesday. So he comes in to my office that Wednesday at 11 a.m. in the morning. He sits across from me, across the table, and shakes my hand, introduces himself, and then he starts to talk about my hometown in India, Calcutta. Okay, food that I like, cricket and soccer, and throwing in a couple of names of Indian, I guess, cricket players and soccer players in those days. And I'm going, how the hell does he know about all these things? So I asked him directly, I said, how do you know these things? How do you know where I'm from and all these things? Well, I did my homework. I have a client in New Orleans who teaches at the University of New Orleans, and he tells me the name, and I know this guy. And, I just approached him and I asked him if he knows about you. And he said, yes. And that's when I asked a lot of questions. And, that is how I did my homework. So he's smiling. So what that did was it basically, helped break the ice immediately. There was an instantaneous connection that was made. So anytime, folks, you're in personal selling, do your homework on the individual that you're approaching. Find out his interests or her interests, whether it's movies, whether it's theater, whether it's golf, whether this person likes to read book. Pick up on a thing or two and talk about those things. And the moment you talk about things that they're interested in, the ice basically breaks and you'll be able to, this individual is going to be a lot more approachable. Questions about prospecting, pre-approach, and approach.
Do we
Yeah.
have only source of persons who knows well of our target people? I mean, we can.
Say it again.
Do we have only source of a persons who knows very well to whom we gonna meet? or we can have the another source from where we can get the information of
You
particular.
can get information from other sources, but it has to be some source. I gave you just example of one source, and sometimes you could be unlucky. You might not have any sources.
Okay, okay, sir.
So Stephen, pre-approach is where you do the homework. So let's say I'm Stephen. I'm trying to sell you something, a software package. You with me?
I'm with you.
And I'm supposed to meet you in your office.
Mhm.
Okay. I know who you are, what position you work for in the company, that you're a big shot, etc., etc. But I'd like to connect with you at a more personal level. So I go and find your friend Mike, who's my client at some other company, and I talk to him and find out more about you. And Mike says, "Oh, Stephen is absolutely crazy about golf,
Yeah.
and he loves French movies."
Mhm.
So I approach you, and I somehow lead the conversation in the direction of golf and French movies, and for 5-10 minutes we chit chat about those things. And what has happened in the process is, Stephen, that any wall that you might have because you quite don't know me, okay, has sort of melted away to a large degree.
Okay.
And you think I can actually connect with this guy. I think golf, he thinks golf.
Mhm.
I
So-
like French movies. At least he has some idea about French movies. That doesn't mean, Stephen, that you will end up buying from me.
Mhm.
Okay. But at least my presentation process becomes a lot smoother.
Yeah. Okay. So it's just
So that's
gathering research to like break the ice, basically.
yeah. Doing your homework.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for
Okay.
that.
All right. Sure. All
So,
right. So the next,
hello.
yes.
Yeah, so if that's the case, that means it's not every selling that sales like company that you can use this approach. Because I'm thinking of the car dealership, for instance. If a person comes in instantly, and how do you perform the pre-approach? Because you will
You
not get a
cannot
time.
because you cannot because actually they have approached you in this case.
Okay,
Okay. So you have to make some quick judgments.
okay,
Okay, but then on the other hand, if you're culturally tuned, I walk in and I'm Indian, and and you look at my name, and I have a colleague from Turkey who will read Indian names. Ah, you're from Tamil Nadu, and the guy from Tamil Nadu or this woman goes like, how do you know?
okay.
Okay, and then
Hello.
he will kind of rattle off names of some Indian movie stars, of old times, and they go like, wow. And when a Turkish guy is doing that and rattling of names of Indian movie stars, even of yesteryears, I mean, you're highly impressed. The ice breaks right away.
Okay. Yeah.
So those are the ways in which I guess you can handle the situation.
Okay. Sure.
Okay. So then is presentation, handling objections, closing the sale, following up. So let's look at presentation. Okay. So presentation, nothing much I have to say over here except make your presentation quite crisp. Okay. And don't just kind of go off in all kinds of directions. Those are the two things you need to keep in mind. But now, before we go into handling objections, let's talk about the two major presentation formats. Two major presentation formats. One is known as canned, like in can, like this is a canned presentation. The other is known as need satisfaction selling. Okay, so canned presentation is memorized presentation. Okay, so canned presentation is memorized presentation. All right. So this canned presentation is based on stimulus response theory. And I'm going to use my vacuum cleaner example to illustrate this theory. So the vacuum cleaners, and this is not the $3,000 vacuum cleaner, but this is what they do. The salesperson comes in, okay, after introductions and all these things, the salesperson now dumps dirt on your brand new brand new carpet. So that's the stimulus. The response is a shocked expression on your face. Sometimes it could be like, I'm going to kill you for destroying my carpet. Okay, so the stimulus is, I dump dirt on the carpet. Response on your behalf is, what the hell is going on? You know, shocked expression. Then my next stimulus is, as a vacuum cleaner salesperson, I vacuum the place and clean the carpet, and it is absolutely spotlessly clean. What you're hoping for is that from the homeowner's perspective, the next response is going to be, whoa, I love this. Where do I sign and how much do I pay? Okay, so that's the idea of stimulus response theory, canned presentation. It's a very kind of memorized presentation. You do the same thing over and over and over and over again. You say the same things over and over again. Questions on the canned presentation, which is based on stimulus response theory. Very good. Next is need satisfaction selling. Next, you have need satisfaction selling. And this is where, this is SEL, selling over here, okay? Need satisfaction selling. This is where you do three things. One, you listen to the consumer or the customer. Two, you listen to the customer. And three, you listen to the customer very carefully. So this is the key thing about need satisfaction selling. Listen to the customer and listen to the customer very carefully. Identify their needs and focus your sales pitch on those needs. If, for example, in the case of this vacuum cleaner sales example, if you wanted to do need satisfaction selling, you would ask the consumer questions and the prospective buyer questions regarding why he or she would like to buy a vacuum cleaner like this. Some people might say that, you know what, I have dust allergies, severe dust allergies, and therefore I would like to have a very good vacuum cleaner. Your sales pitch is going to be different in this case from those that are saying, well, we have 2 dogs, we have pets, and they shed a lot of hair, so we need to just make sure that, you know, we don't have hair in the carpet. You're going to sell the same product to this other person in a very different way. Your message is going to be different, right? So that's the idea of need satisfaction selling, where your sales pitch, what you're going to say, is a function of what need this individual is trying to satisfy. Questions?
Yes, sir. This is Dinesh here.
Yeah.
Sir, in the stimulus response theory, I mean, like, what if the customer rages on the salesperson? I mean, like, every time this doesn't work, right?
No, what was the first part? The customer does what on the salesperson?
I mean, like, if he dumps dirt on carpet, I mean, like, from the example you have given, what if the customer rages on salesperson? I mean, like,
I couldn't get that word. The customer, what on the salesperson?
I mean, like, to scold or something like that.
Well, the customer gets angry. Yeah, it's okay. You just smile and say, hey, wait, I'll clean it. Don't worry.
Okay.
So yeah, you have to be able to handle it. So Daria, your question was, what was your question? Can you text it again?
Yeah, the question is, I'm asking if the canned presentation, also known as the memorized presentation, is it a sort of perceived need, like whereby you're trying to sell?
No, canned presentation is you memorize the presentation, and regardless of the type of need, you just say whatever you need to say.
Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to be that you identified a specific.
No.
So
I'll give you an example. Yeah. So here are the advantages of canned presentation. Because it's somebody has written the script for you, it's very well constructed. It is almost always complete. It covers all the bases. Okay, all the points are covered. And it gives the salesperson a lot of confidence because you have memorized the presentation. So when I was, way back when, 22 years old, I actually worked as a salesperson in India for this company called, I don't know if you've heard of this company, it's AVERY. Okay. In this part of the world, you see this name, it's related to a lot of these stationaries that we use in our offices, like, post-it pads and I guess staplers and all these things, okay, office products. But in India, they actually make weighing machines, electronic weighing machines, okay? And, these weighing machines are used by the retailers. They're also used in industrial capacity. It is a big company. So when they decided to go into the retail business, they hired some salespeople, and they hired actually 5 salespeople, and I was one of those to be hired from, I don't know, maybe 400 or 500 that actually had applied. The initial interview was at Park Hotel, where they wanted to see how we conduct ourselves in a buffet type of a setting. Of course, there wasn't, there was, tea, coffee, and as the English, call it high tea, snacks, cakes, and all these things. So they wanted to see how anglicized we were in terms of being able to handle, tea and coffee in that type of a setting, how we eat and all these things. And of course, conversations happened with the 3 or 4 managers that were there. So they wanted to see, our language skills, how we converse, and if we were able to kind of, introduce ourselves, etc., etc. So desperate, I guess, situations like this, I guess out of desperation, I'm usually it's very difficult to believe what I'm saying, that, I'm usually a very quiet type of an individual. I just sit by myself, and it takes, a lot of time for me to warm up and get connected to people, and then I can sort of, communicate very easily. And once I open up, it's a whole different me, but it takes a while. But then in a situation like that, when the job is on the line, I have to go introduce myself and, say whatever, I had to say. So I went and I talked to them, shook my hands, and, what really helped me was, I guess, I had somewhat of a decent command over the English language, and that helped me a lot. Because, I graduated from St. Xavier's College, which is one of the premier colleges now in India. And so English wasn't that much of an issue, till I, of course, landed in the US, and then I realized it was an issue. So that is a different story. So I got the job, and then basically the training, was we would basically do the presentation and say the same thing over and over and over and over again, and it became extremely boring. Okay. But it was well constructed, it was complete, it gave me a lot of confidence that I could go and say the same thing. So, and I those were interesting days. I learned a lot by I guess working in sales. What I decided though at that time was, after I quit and went to grad school, I said never again, basically, I don't want to be in sales. Because at that time I was young, I hated rejections, I took rejections personally. But now at this age, I don't care about rejections. If if I get a sales job, I'll do it. I have no issues at all. Okay, so gives the salesperson a lot of confidence. So why do you think I realized once I came to the US that I guess my English skills were not as good as I thought as they were? Any quick guesses? Suman? Americans use simpler words. A lot of native speakers. What do you mean by native speakers, Dari? No idea? People who naturally speak the language. Okay. Actually, I realized, I'll tell you this story. This is an interesting story, life story. But what I also have realized is, no matter how much we speak in English, in our respective countries. If it's not my mother tongue, okay, the fluency is not quite there, at least in my experience. And I think the fluency comes when we start to think in that language. Okay? If you can, and my test of fluency and being able to think in that language is if you're able to spontaneously crack jokes and be witty in that language, it sort of tells me that you have a strong command over that language, because humor and wit, they're very kind of culturally oriented based on language. So when you reach that stage, you have some decent command over that language. Okay, but anyways, to make a long story short, this was 1982, the month of May, 26th of May, I land in New York. Okay, and I'm going to fly to Washington, D.C. after customs, which was another experience. I walk out of that area, and these are two big suitcases, and I'm tired from the journey. And this big, huge African American porter approaches me, and he's asking me some questions, and I have absolutely no clue what he's asking. And I'm thinking, I thought I knew English pretty well, went to St. Xavier's College, grew up watching these Western movies. I was in the 70s, early 70s, mid 70s, a Levi's wearing kind of college student, and you couldn't buy Levi's in India in those days. Where have I come? That I don't even understand what he's telling me. Guess what happened? Any ideas? Dinesh? Sigma? Bounced? Means what? It was a joke? What was the joke? No, this guy's talking to me, and I basically, an African American porter, and then I have no idea. I mean, what he's telling me, and I thought I knew English.
Maybe the accent of the speaking.
Could be accent is different. Could be slang. Yeah, I mean, But guess what happened? After 10, 15 seconds, I realized that he wasn't speaking to me in English. He was speaking to me in perfect Hindi. And I'm going, what kind of English is this? The context makes you think differently. New York City, JFK Airport, huge African American guy, and I'm pretty bad in Hindi, But he tells me, in perfect Hindi, he says, "Kahan jana hai? Where are you headed?" I mean, that was the first shock. Well, customs was the first shock. Second big shock that I got in the U.S. Okay, so it was some experience, right? And then he said, when we understood what was going on, he said, I have Indian friends and all that. A lot of them are from Hyderabad, and he goes, in India, you call us coolies. So we started chatting. So it was an interesting experience. Anyways, let's move forward. The disadvantages, and I'll take a minute, promise we'll let you go. Disadvantages of canned presentation. The first one is, it can be made, but you don't want to make it with the same buyer. You're going to sound like an idiot saying the same thing every time you visit this individual. Okay, so that's a big no disadvantage. The second disadvantage is if you're selling many products, how many presentations will you memorize? That's the second disadvantage. The third one is a big thing, like Dara said, so you don't look at the needs of the people. No, unfortunately not. So you don't recognize the differences between the prospects, and you say the same thing to everybody. And the fourth one is oftentimes the prospects cannot participate because you have memorized your presentation and you want to kind of say these things as quickly as you can and not forget anything that you're saying. So there's little chance of prospect participation. So now that brings us to handling objections. People will raise objections. So the question is, how do you handle objections? first thing is, do not get upset. In my younger days, I'd get upset. Do not get upset. Secondly, do not argue. Even if the objection is the stupidest objection, you're going to win the argument. You're going to lose the sale. Do not argue. So what do? You treat the objections as requests for more information. Give them more information so that you can get past those objections. So these are the important tips. And then when we come back next time, next Tuesday, we will have class. We will start with these various methods that you can use to handle objections. And we'll quickly follow, finish our discussion on sales, and then we'll get into pricing. So I'm going to need the entire next week, Tuesday and Thursday, to finish this course. Thank you very much. It is 9:50, right? 9:53. Thank you very much. Stay safe. I will see you next Tuesday and next Thursday. Take care.